So at the beginning, Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency,
or Doge.
Doge? What is Doge going to do?
seemed to have ended up with a fairly narrow mandate. You can look at the Trump executive order creating it, and it says, the purpose is modernizing federal tech.
Wait, one more random tweet. Hold on, what is this? Ethan Klein weighs in on the issue of the housekeeper he and Ela previously employed. Our former housekeeper was fired for being horrifically rude to our boy's nanny, constantly calling her fat and asking when she gained all the weight. Jesus. I gave her so many warnings hoping she would just stop, but she didn't. She was part of our family and we treated her like it. I tried everything to salvage the relationship, but her conduct was inexcusable. This is all documented with HR. They have their own HR, which hopefully makes this an easy matter to settle. It feels extremely violating to know that someone that close to our family can turn around and do something like this. The part about her asking for time off for hernia surgery and then being fired is 100% fabricated. Anyone that knows us or works for us knows that it is not something we would ever do. I care deeply for all of our employees and do everything in my power to do right by them. She tried to shake us down for a huge amount of money, which I immediately declined, knowing our innocence and refusing to ever concede to people like her. Jesus. Wait, there was a complaint filed for this? Oh my God. Wait, what the fuck? Ugh. Oh God, on YouTube drama. These guys are all son sycophants, or any socialist, whatever, sycophantic shit. Is there a link to like a court reporter for this or whatever? Hold on. How did YouTube drama become so it's not dick riding? I mean, it started off as like incredibly like progressive socialist leaning, so it was pretty easy from there on out. Does nobody have a link? Anybody? I don't even know what I would search for on this. Superior Court of California, Los Angeles, Elizabeth Borda. Oh, fuck. I signed up for this site at one point, but they didn't have what I was looking for. And so I unsigned up for it. And now I'm not going to be able to fucking get this. Who has a subscription to this site? Cover receipt, complaint filed by. I need this complaint. It's not going to give this to me. Fuck me. Archive snapshot? Will the archives have a snapshot of like legal shit? Stop. No, Jesus Christ, it's so fucking annoying. Sorry. Oh, I have caps lock on. I'm a fucking retard. Fuck me. No? Hello? Fuck me. Okay, well, never mind. Guess we just won't get to read it all. Whatever. This is a crazy complaint, though. Like, this person has fucking 16 different civil causes of actions listed. It's a whole lot of shit. Violation of California Family Rights Act, disability discrimination in violation of FEHA, retaliation in violation of something FEHA, some kind of some type of employment regulation, failure to provide reasonable accommodations, failure to engage in interactive process, failure to take reasonable steps to prevent discrimination, retaliation in violation of California paid sick leave law, and wrongful termination, failure to provide meal and rest period, failure to pay overtime, failure to pay state and local minimum wage, failure to pay all wages, failure to furnish wage statements, waiting time penalties, failure to provide personnel records, unfair competition in violation of Jesus. This motherfucker did the whole kitchen sink. Who's the plaintiff? An old housekeeper, I guess, that they had. TLDR, an ex-employee is alleging she was fired for requesting time off to recover from hernia surgery and is seeking damages. According to this document, when asked why she was fired, the client said that it was because they were going a different direction and because the person apparently had an issue with the nanny. If there's anything of importance I've missed, please reply with it here. She suffered a hernia at work after being their housekeeper for some time. When they found out she needed surgery and would have to take time off to recover, they axed her 2 days later without notice. That's illegal in California. They are cooked. I like how people say this when they just read one complaint. Like, you can allege whatever you want in a complaint. Doesn't mean it's true. The post below shows a video of them mocking their nanny. There is more information about the lawsuit in the following posts of the thread. Here's a Twitter post about it. Jesus, that clip is really gross. Here is a clip of Ethan Klein mocking his nanny for needing to leave him with his own children so she can check on her family during some of the California wildfires. Now their housekeeper, who has been employed with them since 2020, has filed a lawsuit.
Yes.
But I don't know why. Then there was like fires in LA when we got home. Mm-hmm. We had like a babysitter who was with Theodore, and she had to leave abruptly because she thought her family was burning alive at 1:30. And I'm like so tired. I just got out of the shower. I'm about to go to bed. She goes, excuse me, Mr. Klein.
She doesn't have an accent. What are you doing?
It's a fictitious story. Excuse me, Mr. Klein.
She sounds normal.
Excuse
me, sir.
She goes, excuse me, Mr. Klein.
What?
Oh, my family.
What is this?
In the fire zone, and nobody answer. And my whole family, I die, and I drive home, okay?
Yes.
But I don't know why. Then there was like fires in LA.
Okay, the accent is unnecessary. But mocking his nanny for needing to leave him with his own children. Is this mocking the nanny because she had to leave? Okay. The 46-second clip doesn't help. Also, how old is this if they were on this set? Everything in this suit is accurate. This is both highly illegal and very unethical. A family worth tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars. That Theo and Ethan Klein worth $250 million.
That I prioritize money over, that I'm a hypocrite, that I prioritize money over everything else, that I've thrown friends under the bus, that I'm ignorant and poorly informed, and spread misinformation, that I'm arrogant, that I cannot handle criticism, and that I've used people, just to name a couple of the reoccurring themes. I'm sure there's so much more you could say about me. And let me just say this, okay, for the record, that I am guilty of all of those things. It's gotten worse and worse, and I get criticized more and more, and I get more defensive and more holed up.
I guess this works for people? I don't know, bro. I spent so much time on the internet. Like, here's the greatest hits. Like, do I care about like a compilation? Like, this is so cringe. I don't know. Whatever. I don't trust anybody to even clip these things accurately, but... The way they structured her employment is a bit sketchy. Like, why would she be employed jointly via Teddy Fresh and themselves if she was their personal housekeeper? Seems like a way for liability protection. That wouldn't exist here, but okay. Tax benefits. I guess maybe. I mean, it depends on what she was a housekeeper of and for. And maybe misusing corporate funds. Well, that would be the tax benefits, right? But I guess we will find out in court unless they settle outside of it. Good one. Okay, sorry, fuck. Last thing.
Smoking.
I mean, they're probably right on the liability part. How are you right on the liability part? I feel like hiring somebody as a personal nanny probably calls in a whole lot less liability than if you hire them as a company, because now you've got like employment protections and all that bullshit as well. I don't think that applies to like a normal person, no? Like if you hire a babysitter and then you fire a babysitter, can the babysitter like take you to court for wrongful termination of employment? I don't know. It seems like you have more liability when companies are hiring people. But then it would also depend if she was like 1099 versus W-2. I think the rights you're afforded are different as well. So I don't know.
Yeah, don't smoke and drive.
Yeah,
bro.
don't smoke and drive.
They giving out DUIs for that.
Yeah, but they're giving out DUIs for that now.
You gotta be dummy to get blurped.
If you get blurped, bro,
Look, if you get blurp, bro,
kick one.
kick one.
Ah, you's a savage.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. All right. Back here.
Order creating it, and it says the purpose is
Leon's Law emailed the suit to you. Okay, maybe we'll look at it later.
modernizing federal technology and software to maximize governmental efficiency and productivity. In the last couple of weeks, it's become clear that Musk's role is a whole lot larger than that.
Elon Musk, right now involved in almost every agency and corner of the United States government.
Offering all federal employees a buyout to resign.
Musk and his team have accessed at least 11 agencies, and the count is growing every day.
Elon Musk seized control of USAID.
People getting fired, people getting furloughed in droves.
They are raiding the government.
We don't pledge allegiance to Elon Musk.
What's the plan? What's the plan?
And as I've watched all this unfold, I've been wondering how Elon Musk has evolved in the way he has. How did he go from conventional Obama-era liberal, worried about climate change and who wanted to go to Mars, to right-wing conspiratorial meme lord, working to elect the far-right in Germany?
The future of civilization could hang on this election.
And shred the federal government in the United States.
Yes!
What led to this transition, this evolution for Elon Musk? And what actual strategies is he bringing to the government that he now seems to have quite a lot of control over? To talk about all this, I want to invite Kara Swisher on the show. Kara is one of the great tech reporters of the age. She's been covering Musk for many, many years, along with many of the other tech CEOs who become such key political figures now. She's, of course, a host of the great podcast On with Kara Swisher and Pivot, which she co-hosts with Scott Galloway. As always, my email, EzraKleinShow@nytimes.com. Kara Swisher, welcome back to the show.
Thank you. I've never been here, but...
You've been on my show before.
I have not.
Yes, you have. I'm gonna go back and show you.
Oh, I feel like he stole my idea. No, I'm sure other people have done this. Having the camera switch and then the camera is just a person on a laptop.
Well, that's as I suggested you do podcasting.
Good
You've done
idea.
rather well, I would say.
A masterclass in interviewing from Kara Swisher, it was called.
Wow, I must have forgotten it.
I can't. It was such a seminal moment. Well, it's good to see you.
Good to see you.
How do you describe the role Elon Musk has been playing in the federal government in the first weeks of Donald Trump's second term?
Well, a little more strongly than the New York Times did. They're sort of treating it like isn't this an interesting person walking through. I think he's a one-man wrecking ball, really, and he's being used by Trump for that purpose. There's lots of ways you could use metaphors. You could say junkyard dog. He's the one sort of taking all the flack, going in and breaking things. And you could be funny and call it Wreck-It Ralph. I don't think it's particularly funny or the right way to do it or constitutionally sound. But that's the kind of thing. He's going in there like he does with his companies and doing the exact same thing. He's got a series of moves that he makes every single time, and he's doing them writ large on the federal government.
Walk me through the moves. What is his playbook?
Well, it's changed and morphed over the years, but always drama, always a massive amount of drama centered on him. That tends to be the thing he does. When he's he can be very dramatic in a very poignant way. Like one time there was a period where he was very worried about the fate of Tesla, if you remember, and he was sleeping on the floor there, and he actually gave an interview in the New York Times where he seemed to cry. He seemed very emotional, and at one point when we were talking, this was, I think, off camera, he said, if Tesla doesn't survive, the human race is doomed, which I felt was a little dramatic, and I thought, wow, this is what man in his 40s who thinks that he's the center of the universe. And so it always has that element of drama. Like it has to be that, and he has to be at the center. I think he's greatly informed by video games. And so he's sort of, someone described him to me as Ready Player One, and everybody else is an NPC, which is a non-player character. So he always has to be the hero or the person who matters the most. And sometimes he does, and sometimes he's engineered it. So, just like getting the founder role when he's not actually the founder, or rewriting history or using PR to make himself the founder. So he understands the hero's journey kind of thing really rather well. He also, the stakes have to be very high, and if it doesn't work, we're doomed kind of thing. So he uses language like that of doom. He tends to overstate the problems when most companies have problems, but everything is a disaster here and I'm here to fix it. Or everything sucks and everybody previously is criminal or evil. Pedophile is a word he likes to use a lot, but he uses the terms like evil. And in one tweet, he called Yoel Roth, who was head of trust and safety at Twitter, who he did like until he quit, and then he became evil. In one tweet, he called him evil, and I was seething with hate, which is really dramatic and ridiculous. I'm not seething with hate.
Very Trumpian.
Yeah, that kind of thing. I think he means it, though. I think Trump sometimes is just doing it for show, showman, a reality show kind of thing.
So there's a story that Musk tells, a sort of dramatic story. It's him against evildoers, but there's also mechanics, right? He has people, lieutenants, fan out to key points.
One thing I really don't like with this administration is it's on top of the 50 billion other horrendous and horrible things that are going on, you have to spend a lot of time trying to figure out, what the fuck do they even mean? Are they serious here? Is this a joke? When Trump says he wants to take over Canada as the 51st state, is that serious? Is that an intimidation and bullying thing? Is it some stupid negotiating thing? Is it signaling some other idea? Is it literally just him being bored and a meme? You have to do this with every single person involved in this administration. I don't know what the fuck. I guess it's part of the propaganda strategy, right? Is to make everybody feel ungrounded and unsure of anything.
Dramatic story. It's him against evildoers, but there's also mechanics, right? He has people, lieutenants, fan out to key points. One thing we're seeing right now with what Musk is doing in the federal government is an identification of choke points of information and money. The Treasury payment system, the Office of Personnel Management, which is a place where Musk has installed trusted aides, and they're using that as a way to fan out across the federal workforce. So tell me a bit beneath the story Musk tells, the grand narrative, when he takes things over and what he's brought from that to the federal government, what does he actually have the people under him do? What is the theory of action?
Well, he has people around him that are just enablers. They're sort of all these Silicon Valley people do. And all his minions and their minions, they're all lesser than he is in some fashion, and they all look up to him. They're typically younger. They laugh at his jokes. Sometimes when he apologizes for a joke, which is not very often, he said people around me thought it was funny. Well, they all do, because they're to be in the room is to watch it happen. When he was being interviewed at Code once, he had a couple of them there, and he's told a really bad joke, and they all went like that. And I was like, that's not funny. I was like, I'm sorry, did I miss the joke? And they looked at me like I had three heads. And what they do is, it's not that hard to figure out choke points, right? This is where we need to be. And then they go into it in this way that is, violating of typical rules. And I don't mean necessarily laws, although I suspect many laws may have been broken here, but not caring about breaking laws. And so they go in sort of full force and question, let me see your code. Why can't we get in? We're getting in. We have the law. We have federal marshals. Let's see what they'll do. And that is a really big quality that he has. Let's say things and wait for them to sue us, or wait for them to stop us. They won't stop us. And again, very much like Trump, the people don't stop you. We just operate on a set of, polite rules in society, and they just barrel right through them.
I want to zoom in on that breaking of rules, because I think something Musk understands, Trump has understood in different ways, is that at high levels of society, the recourse for breaking a law, breaking a rule is legal. You don't get frog marched out. Typically, what happens is somebody sues you. They need to have standing. It works its way through the courts. You have lawyers as well, and it moves slowly. And so a lot of law following and rule following is just a norm at that level, that you follow the laws and you follow the rules. If you don't, you can move much faster than the courts are likely to move, right? They can fire all these people, many of them potentially illegally, given civil service protections. And what, they're going to sue over the course of 6 to 9 months or 4 years and maybe get some back pay, right? Corporations do this against people organizing unions all the time.
They do.
But as an insight that a lot of what has constrained other executive branches is not actually a constraint, because by the time the legal system catches up, you've already achieved what you want to achieve.
That's correct.
It's a pretty...
The built-in mechanism for this is supposed to be things like temporary restraining orders and things like preliminary injunctions to like, hey, you need to chill right now because shit is fucked. But like if you've got somebody who it's not just one thing, it's 100 things, and they're just like going full speedhead in every direction, like even a TRO, even a preliminary injunction isn't going to save you here. It's just these guys don't give a fuck about rule of law at all. So it's like, yeah, you're like powerless, and the courts aren't really giving you what you need because, I mean, ignoring even if an injunction or a TRO or whatever is granted, like you still, the actual court process could take months or years depending on what's even being sued over. Like I think there are still even a few of those election lawsuits from 2020 might still be alive in some places. Like it takes so long.
Pretty profound insight.
Yeah, it is.
Actually, there's a really good lesson to be learned from, I should remember her name. What's her name? Joan Donahue. When we were listening to her talk about her role as the president of the Court of Justice when South Africa was bringing that genocide case, one of the things that she said was people need to be cognizant of what the purpose of a court is. A court is here to hold somebody accountable for wrongdoing or to give some sort of relief to somebody who has had wrong done to them. Like these are like these are your big missions for courts. Courts are not here to solve current ongoing problems or to stop people from committing crimes. That's the executive's job. And so we're in a really weird world where it's the executive is the one that's burning through all the rules. Well, you have your courts as like a check, but a court is not really meant to be a fast-moving body that is trying very quickly to prevent people from breaking future laws and hold them accountable. They have like mechanisms in the form of TRO, preliminary injunctions, and I'm sure other tools. They have mechanisms to do this, but these mechanisms are not very robust and they're not very effective against an executive who's supposed to be the one, arguably, that's enforcing these mechanisms, right? If you get a restraining order against a violent partner for domestic violence, well, let's say the partner comes to your house. Who are you calling to get him to go the fuck away? You're not calling the court. Hello, Judge Casper, can you please come to my house and get this guy away from me? You're calling the executive, you're calling the police. I need the police to come. I need the executive to come and enforce this court order. So you're in a really weird spot where you're trying to use the courts, which by their very nature are not meant to prevent ongoing bad stuff from happening really, or to stop people from breaking laws, but more to hold them accountable for it. When you're relying on courts to restrain the executive, it's not really the role or function of the court, even if it wasn't applied to the executive. So it's a really weird spot to be in, I think. It fundamentally just betrays the role of the judiciary.
That a lot of what has constrained other executive branches is not actually a constraint, because by the time the legal system catches up, you've already achieved what you want to achieve.
That's correct.
It's a pretty profound insight.
Yeah, it is. And if he gets caught, he's willing to pay, right? Like he's willing to go toe-to-toe legally. And I think what a lot of people are is, I don't want to fight this guy. He has unlimited money, right? Like you have to think twice if you're going, I mean, journalists have to think twice. It's very similar to these media companies settling. CBS has done nothing wrong in this Kamala Harris situation, and yet they're going to pay. It's pretty clear that Meta did nothing wrong with Trump, and yet they're going to pay. You do it to make it go away, or you don't do it at all because of exhaustion. And he understands that. He understands that he can wear them down. And so it is true, if you blow lights, you mostly get away with it, right? Like you don't always get caught, or if you don't pay bills, or in his business life, let's blow up 90 rockets because the 91st will work. And that's his attitude towards pretty much everything, I can tell.
Although, to be fair to him, it led to some amazing rockets.
It did, but who else gets to, look, and then he insults NASA, which is not allowed to blow up rockets. NASA can't blow up rockets because then they blow up one rocket, that's the end of it, right? Mm-hmm. And so it's a real advantage to be able to blow up rockets and then keep going. You know that Thomas Edison quote? There's a famous quote that they all quote back to me that I have not...
Out of curiosity, are all perms temporarily revoked? Wait, what perms?
Keep going. You know that Thomas Edison quote? There's a famous quote that they all quote back to me that I have not failed. I found 10,000 ways that don't work, whatever. And then you eventually get to it. And so it's very...
I found, wait, what?
I have not failed. I found 10,000 ways that don't work, whatever. Oh. And then you eventually get to it. And so it's part of the ethos of tech is that there's no such thing as failure. There's only, it didn't work that time and I'll get the right one next.
But this gets to, I think, the deeper question, because there are all these tactics and strategies, but towards what? When he's blowing up rockets, he was trying to make rockets that work in a certain way, and eventually he did. And I think the world, frankly, is better off for him doing it. Tesla had many failures, but really did make better electric cars than anybody else made and help.
Destiny, I don't think anyone should be able to remove someone's right to be charged. I see the upsides, but inherently it puts someone else's choice above the judiciary when it comes to punishing people. As a president, being able to be safe from persecution, prosecution, via civil court is already enough, in my opinion. You don't need more power as president. That's not even what I'm talking about. I'm not even talking about the immunity. I'm just saying in general, your executive is the body that is enforcing laws. When the executive starts breaking laws, you're in a very, very, very weird situation. It's not good.
Help the electric vehicle transition.
Oh, you meant to tag someone else. Good job.
Or offer him doing it. Tesla had many failures, but really did make better electric cars than anybody else made and help the electric vehicle transition happen. What does he want now, though? What is this all in service of? What is the vision, in your view, that he's trying to effectuate with all this power that he now wields in the government?
It's not money. Money's not, I hate to say this, I hate it, but it's not that important to many of them, right? You know that. It's not money. Some of them really like money, that's for sure. But it's not money, it's the power that money brings, and it's power to decide. And, I think it started off, I have some good ideas and I'd like to put them into place. And now it's, I have all the ideas on every topic, and therefore what I say goes. It's a very king-like attitude towards things, right? Or that philosopher they like, that we should have a functional CEO running our country that gets to decide everything, and screw Congress, screw the courts. We should have a king, essentially a CEO that has unlimited power. He also does have a really weird sense of mortality in a way that he wants to be legendary, right? Again, go back to video games. But I think he wants the glory of it. He has those images in his head. And that's not by way of excuse, it's by way of explanation, right? That this is how he looks at himself, is on a grand journey of the hero. He's not a hero, by the way. Let me be clear.
But I think this gets at what to me is one of the mysteries of Musk, because the ideas that he seems committed to have changed. Peter Thiel, who is contemporary, they co-founded PayPal together, but Thiel has always been pretty far right. You go back to things he was writing at Stanford.
Is the only form of check that really exists then impeachment? The judiciary in the end is powerless to make the executive back down? No, there is no check. To be super ultra clear, I'm sorry if I'm not making this clear enough. There is no check. That's why this is called a constitutional crisis. If the executive decides not to enforce the law, you have nothing you can do. You're fucked. That's why at that point, the military has to step in and the executive has to check itself. The only thing that can save you at that point is some sort of coup, basically, from the military to overthrow a corrupt president. Like the executive is in charge of enforcing the law. Now, if the executive breaks the law because they think they have the right to do something, and then the judiciary checks them, that's okay. But if the executive is breaking the law that they know they have no right to do, and they don't care, they're working with not misunderstandings of the law, but blatant disregard for the law, you're in a constitutional crisis because you have nothing you can do. There's nothing. The executive is meant to enforce the law. So when the executive is willfully breaking the law, it's a coup or revolution stage at that point. There's nothing you can do.
They co-founded PayPal together, but Thiel has always been...
How would an impeachment work? Are you saying that the executive... He could. If the executive is going to ignore the judiciary, why the fuck wouldn't he ignore impeachment? What do you mean? At the end of the day, somebody physically has to remove him from office, right?
He seems committed to have changed. Peter Thiel, who is contemporary, they co-founded PayPal together, but Thiel has always been pretty far right. You go back to things he was writing at Stanford. Musk, you go back to, say, the Obama era, he's a kind of standard Obama-era liberal. He has a series of companies that are solving problems that are important to Obama-era liberals. Those companies survive off of Obama-era policies, from government contracts to electric vehicle subsidies, right? Loan guarantees. Tesla saved by an Obama loan guarantee. And even in 2017, he joins an advisory board with Trump for Trump, and then he gets back off of it when Trump pulls out of the Paris Climate Accords. So you have someone who is running public-private partnerships, working endlessly with the government, working on things like climate change, and within a very compressed matter of years, moves very, very far to the right. So I agree that he wants power for his ideas, but it has always been a little bit mysterious to me what led to the striking radicalization.
You're right. And during Obama, he was supportive. When he joined that, we texted a lot during that period. He was on the Trump thing, and he was like, they're trying to do an anti-gay thing. I'm going to get in there and stop them. Like, he was very much, I need to be here to change Trump's mind. Only I can change it kind of thing. He wasn't anti-Trump, but he certainly wasn't pro-Trump, I can tell you that. He was very much he's kind of a con man school of thought with him. Around COVID, I saw a lot of changes, but I talked to him quite a lot, and people give me a hard time for having done that. I get it, but he wasn't that off the beaten track before. He was megalomaniacal. He was typical of a tech person, but doing more interesting things. But there was a real shift during COVID. I noticed it. He got very upset. He got very overly upset and overly dramatic. Look, if you think your company is critical for the future of the human race, and then California closes it down because of COVID, you get in that mode. That's one. I definitely, he sort of got very unreasonable. And in one interview I did with him, he started saying only a few thousand people or whatever, I don't remember precisely, were going to die from COVID, and he had read all the studies, and he knew, and I didn't. He's never liked unions or the government or regulation. That goes way back for all these people. And so it became more profound during COVID, this idea. I think the issues around his trans daughter seem to have affected him quite profoundly. I've noticed that in a number of tech people who have trans children. And the second thing I think the Wall Street Journal has correctly reported on is his use of ketamine and other drugs. So I think that was another thing that seemed to have changed him. Although they all use drugs.
I know a lot of people use ketamine. They don't tend to turn that far.
Correct,
right.
But I think he was doing it himself. He was like the world's expert, right? It was also staying up late at night. He has this weird proclivity to be up at 3 a.m. and obsessively. He's got an obsessive personality. We all have that element to us, but he's got it in spades. And the one thing that I think I keep saying this to people, and I said it at the time, when Biden did not invite him to that EV summit and invited Mary Barra instead and treated him shabbily, he was very upset, like very. I talked to him a lot about it.
In case of impeachment, the military wouldn't step in on its own. It would just recognize the new acting president as a lawful leader and follow orders, right? I mean, first of all, you're assuming that enough Republicans would go through with the impeachment, which we don't even know that would be the case. And then secondly, we don't know if Trump would allow the impeachment to happen, like physically. Like, who's to say he wouldn't just shut down Congress if they were going to vote on that? Like, who knows, right?
He texted me, and other people did too. Other people noticed it too. And this was a summit that Biden had, and he couldn't invite him because of the union issues. He was very virulently anti-union. So they didn't invite him, and he was very upset, like personally upset, like wounded almost. And I even went as far as to call Steve Ricchetti, who works for Biden, and I said, boy, have you made a mistake. That you should bear hug this guy. I wouldn't be, he's really mad. And, Steve Ricchetti's a nice guy. And he's like, oh, it's the unions. He should understand. He's a big boy. And I was like, no, he's not a big boy.
The Biden people are all very relational. For them to have missed what a relational snub like this could do to somebody with his ego it's a mistake at the kind of politics that they were supposed to be so good at.
Well, the thing is, and Steve's, again, a lovely guy. I actually ran into him at a...
How can he shut down Congress? Deploy the National Guard there and just lock the doors, say nobody's allowed in. What do you mean?
Movie premiere.
Kind of politics that they were supposed to be so good at.
Well, the thing is, and Steve's, again, a lovely guy. I actually ran into him at a movie premiere.
Or, more than that, just declare that Congress ought to be shut down, that the Capitol building ought to be shut down. Imagine what the next January 6th would look like, knowing that people like Trump are there to pardon you if you ever get charged with a federal crime, right? How much more emboldened would people be like the Proud Boys or the Oath Keepers, whose leaders, all the seditious conspiracy guys, were all pardoned now, and anybody charged with a crime was all pardoned, even the people that committed violence against police officers, right? Who knows how much more emboldened any Trump sycophant on the ground who wants to commit violence to defend their God Emperor, would be.
The kind of politics that they were supposed to be so good at.
Well, the thing is, and Steve's, again, a lovely guy. I actually ran into him at a movie premiere for Wicked, and he goes, guess you were right. I'm like, guess so. It's the way he takes slights is really strange. I've seen it in action, sort of petty anger and slights, and that one really stuck hard. And the Biden people kept tweaking him, and I found that to be you could be like, so what? I'm like, why would you do that? He actually does deserve the accolades around Tesla, right? So why not just give him that? And I never understood why they wouldn't, despite the union stuff.
There's a factor you haven't mentioned here, which is Twitter. Mm-hmm. So the Wall Street Journal has a piece from years ago where it's just tracking his number of tweets year by year, 2012, 2013, 2014. You begin to see it really explode.
So if/when Trump shuts down Congress, there's no other option than to fight. I don't know. I guess maybe we'll get into this in the whatever Hitler book. But the issue is that there are always other options, but it's almost like a recession in the United States. You can't declare a recession has happened until you've had 2 quarters of negative GDP growth. You can't predict one. You can't say when you're in one. You have to wait until it's already happened. And I guess I worry that we've already crossed the threshold multiple times of stuff where this is not good and it should be stopped, probably with action. I'll use that euphemism. But if you get to the point where Trump is literally locking Congress and not allowing them, then the next argument would probably be, oh, well, if he's locked us out, then nothing is at least happening. And then maybe next time it's in session, then we can impeach him. Or maybe next time, next time he does this, well, then there are going to be real consequences. Or maybe the military, maybe. It's always maybe. It's always something in the future. It's always ambiguous. It's always who knows. But I mean, I don't know if there's ever a definite point of this can't go on, this needs to stop. In my mind, and maybe there's something I'm not understanding structurally or rule-wise, what that one guy said, wait, was it Ezra Klein or was it Scott Galloway? I think it was Galloway. There already needs to be congressmen getting arrested. They should be at these buildings and then trying to break in or already being there and then getting arrested by security when they're not leaving. This should already probably be happening. I don't know why Elon and any of his fat-fingered, disgusting fucking losers are allowed to touch any federal data. They have no right to any of that whatsoever. They should be locked in prison and given electroshock therapy until they forget every single fucking thing they've laid eyes on. The fact that that's already happening, and it's just kind of oh, well, a judge told them to stop, so hopefully they do for a bit. There's already huge problems in them even ever being allowed near any of that. It's disgusting. So, I mean, I don't know.
The Journal has a piece from years ago where it's just tracking his number of tweets year by year, 2012, 2013, 2014. You begin to see it really explode. 2016, 2017, it gets really big, 2018. And then he's really off to the races.
Yeah.
And there's a lot going on in his use of Twitter. And obviously he eventually buys Twitter, and we'll talk about that. Mm-hmm. But clearly he becomes very influenced by some quite radically right subcultures on Twitter. The part of Twitter he ends up falling into, whether he looks for it or just gets into it, I don't know what the chicken and the egg is here. But he doesn't become a normal Republican. He doesn't become, in some ways, a normal MAGA Republican. He's not like Steve Bannon or something.
No.
He falls into a sort of world of Twitter anons. And
well, it started off with joking stuff. Like he liked all those memes, dank memes. He loves dank memes. I always felt when you know him so much better than I do. I don't know him very well at all, but I always felt when I left his presence a couple times, I have been around it, and this was years ago before he was, who he is now. I would tell people he was the smartest 15-year-old boy in the world. Yeah, that's a very good way to put it. Yeah.
And so he got really into the memes, and this was always a real door into a dark right wing on that particular.
It always is. I have experiences with my own son. Like he loves dank memes. Like he always sends me dank memes or whatever. And you can fall down it. And I think that's what attracted him to Twitter for sure. And then it took off into a much more darker place that other things impacted it. But he's an addictive personality, clearly. Like whether it's to work or hardcore is one of his favorite words, which is I find to be hustle porn. So he's attracted to addiction, and so his Twitter use is you can watch it. Like you can see it. It's manic, and he's a manic person, and I think it's, again, not an excuse, but an explanation. He has a manic personality.
So
it's not as simple as saying the military would check him. It's full civil war at that point. I mean, like, really, we don't know. Like, there are things that we can say, but we just don't know. Like, does Donald Trump really have the support of the military? I'm not entirely sure that's true. I don't know if that's the case. I don't know if he announced some crazy shit using the military that the military would go along with him. Like, I just don't know. I'm not sure.
Also reality that in a way that is unusual among people of his class, he's really good at it, good at social media in the way young people are, not in the way Barack Obama is, right? You get.
I don't think he's good the way my kids are cringe. They're always like cringe.
Fair enough, but there's an official voice of social media, right? Yeah. The voice Mark Zuckerberg used to have before he became an Elon Musk imitator online. The voice that you would get from Obama or Bill Gates. Yeah. And Musk isn't in that voice. He's constantly responding to small follower accounts, and he.
Jesus, holy fucking Christ, true as fuck. NRA accidentally forgets to rise up against tyrannical government. An embarrassed National Rifle Association says it totally forgot to do the one thing it has been saying for years it is solely there to do.
Or Bill Gates.
At Destiny, as someone who was in the military, they probably would unless it was directly with U.S. civilians, but that's what it would be for, And that's my understanding from every military guy I've spoken to. And again, I could be totally fucking selection biased in just my own audience, but like, law enforcement is not something the military ever wants to do or be involved in. And the idea of the military doing things against American citizens is from what I've been told from people in the military, that would be deeply, deeply uncomfortable with everybody I've talked to that's in the military. You just aside from obvious stuff like MTs or whatever, like you just like the military is not supposed to be deployed against its own citizenry, and that would just be a very uncomfortable situation. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Musk isn't in that voice. He's constantly responding to small follower accounts. And he really does build up an attentional power that he didn't have before it. He begins to really trade in this coin of attention.
He loves attention.
He loves attention, but he's, he uses it to drive meme coins. He begins, I think, to understand in a way other people don't, because he's experimenting with it, what you can turn attention into.
Right.
What set him apart from sort of the other people who superficially looked like him that made him temperamentally suited to doing that?
Well, his manic nature, right? It's got a manic addictive quality to it. And he does have a sense of humor. It's not my sense of humor, and people will hate me for saying this, but it can be rather charming, right? Like when he was on Saturday Night Live.
Look, I know I sometimes say or post strange things, but that's just how my brain works. To anyone I've offended, I just want to say I reinvented electric cars and I'm sending people to Mars in a rocket ship. Did you think I was also going to be a chill, normal dude?
He was so awkward that it was charming. And other people are going to say Kara loves him, but I don't care. Go watch it. It is. I don't just the way.
You really have all these people in your life who are surprised that when
you made them. Oh yes. Oh my God. So exhausting. I have to tell you, sometimes the left is so ridiculously censorious. It's kind of like, I don't want to use censorious. That's not. They're just like scoldish. I don't want to use. They're not censoring in any way. But yes, I get a lot of like, you made him. Like you didn't know it. Well, I didn't know how he was treating him.
That's on a scale from 1 to 10. How close do you think the U.S. is from needing Do you think the U.S. is from needing its citizens and or military to rise up against the government? I mean, I don't know. I would say like we're at 7 or above is my feeling. Like there's already illegal shit happening at the behest of the president to our other federal agencies. Like the problem is that it's not even, this is like, I keep reiterating this, it's not just the executive like bullying other branches of government, like the judiciary or the legislative. It's literally the president trying to take over the executive, which in some ways is even more scary, I think. Like fighting with his other federal departments. I don't know. It's
his kid. I'm sorry, I didn't know that. And had I known, I would have.
He also didn't make him. The car company was successful because the cars were.
I was covering him as a car manufacturer. Look, that Silicon Valley is. I'm not going to make an excuse. Silicon Valley has a million people like him. He was very typical, except he was doing more interesting things than other people. So getting back to how he's good at it, I think the people that are very good, and I once wrote a column about in the Times when I was writing for the Times about the two people I thought were very good, which is AOC and Trump. right? They're genuine to themselves, right? Or Kim Kardashian's another person who's like this. You don't have to like any of these people, but boy, are they good at channeling themselves as an image online. And it feels genuine. It feels like them doing it, and it is them doing it. It feels like it's their voice, if that makes sense. People love when someone that famous reacts to them, and then it creates a sensation around them, right? And so then you get a lot of acolytes. Oh my God, Elon Musk responded to me, and he feeds off of that too. And again, he combines the humor. He initially combined humor with that, or insights, right, to interesting things, and then it's very quickly twisted into stuff he doesn't know anything about, and he just pontificates. And that's his favorite thing, is to say all manner of nonsense and inaccuracies about things he doesn't know what he's talking about.
I remember being at Code years ago, and you all had Musk on the stage, and he sort of talked through that he believed in the simulation hypothesis, which is a hypothesis that you should expect that any sufficiently advanced civilization will begin running simulations of the world. There will be more simulations than there will be base realities, and so by a simple matter of arithmetic, we are likely to be living in a simulated world than the real world. And Musk said, he bought this and thought there's a pretty low chance.
He said there's a non-zero chance, and it fascinated him. Again,
well, that's what I was going to get at. Not the simulation. I think people can make too much of whether or not that idea matters. But he has a mind, has always, I think, had a mind that is attracted to unusual ideas. That the things that most people believe are probably wrong. What you can and can't do, what isn't true. And I mean, he has been proven right a number of times, in very, very big, profound ways. Now he's the richest man in the world. I mean, he has the most attention in the world, right? From where you start to end up there, that's going to change your psychology.
Right.
And one thing that then seems true, though, is that he doesn't just get attracted to unusual ideas, but he gets more conspiratorial.
If a tyrannical government has support of a large amount of the public support, they are happy to give up government's standards, rules, norms, etc. How could even they even be defeated? Why do you guys? You paid $20. If a tyrannical government has support of a large amount of the public's support that are happy to give up government's standards, rules, norms, etc., how could they even be defeated in a hypothetical civil war? Okay, sorry. Most coups or things like that are going to have a good amount of public support. I think it's generally pretty rare that like 20 people like, I'm going to coup the government, like they would just get killed afterwards. Like you have to winning the public support, I think, is part of a successful coup, or at least having an administration that's so unpopular that if they were to get coup, nobody in the public would give a fuck,
Watch him on Twitter. And I'm curious how you understand that dimension of him.
Well, Kevin Roose did a great thing about that. You go down this rabbit hole. It really is. It can really be, did you know this? Or, everybody is subject to it with the way social media works. That's a mind of technology people. They're like, this could happen. We could go to the moon, right? You have to have that element.
This guy has like 5 cameras on him, I think. I think he has one on the laptop or right above. He's got one that's above it. He's got one below. He's got one from one angle from the side and then one from like 45 degrees. I think a 90, 40. Does he have 5 different cameras on? Watch, pay attention to how many shots are on this guy. The fuck?
To you if you're going to do very difficult things. And so you have to start with that personality. And therefore, every single thing is open to question. Why do we do it this way? Why do we do it this way?
So here's one
and
from the
it's
side.
A personality trait
2
I like.
Above.
But what happens is when you start to get out to Ukraine or, vaccines or whatever, they have to question everything.
3, this is like dead on.
I always joke about it with my wife. Oh, yet another bold truth teller, right? Like, I'm so tired of them. Like, I'm here to boldly tell you the truth without any actual information or reporting. And so he's attracted to that idea, like the simulation, like, why can't we live on Mars? Not everybody does that. And I think when it starts from that, it starts off from a good place. But often in the social media world, as Kevin correctly put out in that podcast he did, is it goes down into the sort of conspiracy theory avenue really quickly.
But it's a very specific kind of conspiracy theory he gets into. So you have him, he responds to somebody who tweets that Jews, quote, have been pushing the exact kind of dialectical hatred against whites that they claim to want people to stop using against them. And Musk replies, you have said the actual truth. In July 2024, just before he came out in support of Trump, he accused Democrats of, quote, trying to import as many illegal voters as possible. And in this way, I think what is going on with him is a little bit distinct from a lot of the people who superficially have similar politics, because I think he's really bought into a lot of great replacement theory.
Yes.
A lot of this idea.
So have a lot of people in Silicon Valley. Let me say, he's not alone.
No, he's not.
He's got a cut like this Curtis Yarvin stuff. They've all sort of been taken by these. It's almost religious if you think about it, right? And so one of the things that I think it goes back to, and I hate to say this, is sad little boy wasn't loved enough as a child, is searching for meaning, right? Is searching for love, searching for, and again, not an excuse, because I think he's become a terrible person and he should get therapy. But when there's easy answers like that, oh, this is why you're so unhappy. Oh, this is why
I think there's 2 more. Hold on. Oh, I might have mixed up this one with a different camera.
An itch for these people.
Like that, I thought
it's
there was
religion. It's their answer to the world.
Well, I mean, it's also a politics. So Musk is South African. Peter Thiel spent much of his childhood in South Africa. David Sachs is South African. And there's a very distinctive experience to being somebody born in or who lived in South Africa during apartheid, and also then saw apartheid dismantled, saw South Africa change. I've never quite known myself how much weight to put on this interpretation, but it seems relevant. It seems interesting.
It's certainly relevant.
There's just one camera, and the cameraman is just moving around really, really fast.
Elon Musk and Sachs, who are 3 of the most significant figures in the Silicon Valley embrace of Trump, have this very, very distinctive political experience of watching South Africa's white minority move from being in control of the country to a frightened minority in the country.
I mean, there is that element to a lot of these people. And the same thing with Silicon Valley people. Again, when you merge that with the ideas around Silicon Valley, which is highly male, highly, we have all the answers. Why are these silly people in our way? And with the South African thing, I don't know. Like, I don't know what happened there that created this group of people, but you could say that about people who come from Russia or China, or, there's an element of a whole bunch of people who immigrated from India. So, they bring with them the whatever culture happened there. And with South Africa, you can go one of two ways, right? You can go the Athol Fugard way, or you could go in this more this way of longing for past times, I guess, in some fashion.
So Musk goes and buys Twitter. It's a sort of unusual acquisition. He tries to get out of it while it's happening.
Wait, is this a lower camera angle or is this the head-on one? I can't tell if this is a different camera angle or not.
Yes,
but he does
some fashion.
So Musk goes and buys Twitter. It's a sort of unusual acquisition. He tries to get out of it while it's happening. But he does buy it. And he comes in and he immediately does this huge cutting, just like slashing right through it. And people talk about this as headcount reduction. They talk about it as cutting waste. They talk about it as cutting bone. But what I think when you look back on it now, what it both was in reality and also, and you know more about this than me, but what it becomes culturally in Silicon Valley is the reassertion of control.
That's right.
Of a CEO over an annoying and overly empowered liberal employee base.
CEOs
Talk a little bit about not exactly just what he did, but what the cultural effect of what he did was on his cohort.
Well, I think what was really interesting is a lot of these guys, can I use this in the Times, have tiny dick energy. I don't know what else to say. They want to be big swinging dicks and they won't do it, right? They won't go there because they're worried about what people will say or everyone's sort of watching each other. And this guy goes in and just does it. Silicon Valley, the employees run the show. Like, they really do. They like to get their lunches. They like to get their cars, their dry cleaning. They like to speak up. And by the way, they started it. Like Google starting with having the employees talk back every Friday. What do you think was going to happen, right? They're going to
who is Kara Swisher? Did she know Musk or? I think she's like one of the largest people who's done like interviews of people in the tech world. Like, I think she's well known for interviewing like a ton of different people, including Elon Musk and other people. Fuck, there might just be 3 camera angles. I was hallucinating the whole time. Whatever, fuck me.
Yeah, Facebook having a Friday meeting where Mark Zuckerberg answers employee questions.
I hear you.
And they all create the internal chat software.
Right. Everybody
like
has
Slack
a
and
point of
Teams,
view.
where it allows employees to be speaking in a way that they can sort of organize that speech even without unions.
Right. They gave power to their employees. And I had a discussion, I don't think it was Mark, where I was like, now they're talking back. I'm like, what did you think they were going to do? You indulge children for long enough and give them sugar all day long. They're going to become terrible people. Like, you know what I mean? And so that they were surprised by this is what happened when they created these cultures, I'm always surprised by. So they have all these employees that annoy them. So they let them say whatever they wanted, and then they said whatever they wanted, and then they were annoyed by them saying whatever they wanted. And they found it, very hard to push back because, talent is at a premium in Silicon Valley. So you have to kind of let everybody be themselves, right? And it got annoying for a lot of these people because they had effective control over things. But with Musk, when he did it, you could see everybody in Silicon Valley. They wanted to be him. Oh, he gets to do that. I don't get to do that. I have to listen to my diversity, equity, inclusion people. Like, oh, I hate those people. But he doesn't have to. He can do whatever he wants. And when he did that and cut people, they wanted to do that too.
This feels to me like part of the COVID era radicalization that happened to the Silicon Valley CEO class. Something happening during COVID, during the rise of various reckonings of Me Too, of Black Lives Matter. I really think it has a lot to do with the rise of Slack and Teams and things like that. I think it's a very underrated dimension of what changed the relationship between the bosses and their employees.
True.
It feels to me like a lot of the CEOs just hated their employees. What radicalized them was that they had lost control of their companies.
Right.
And they wanted that control back. And that, as much as anything, feels to me like the theory Musk is important.
One of my rules, if you work for me, is you have to add me on every social media account, and then I have to see everybody that you're friends with. You're not allowed to be friends with any other person in my company. And if I see that, then you get blackmailed and extorted and then night flighted out to the Pacific and dropped off, and you're gone forever.
Reporting out to the government. It's not, he's talking about cutting spending, cutting waste. What he's trying to get for Trump or for him is control.
Right. It's sort of the rid me of this annoying priest kind of thing. Like, rid me of these people. Again, it's like a king thing. The way they set up their companies is a kingship, right? Mark Zuckerberg has complete control. He can't be fired. He's there for life, dictator for life, or whatever, the joke you want to make. And so they like that. But it's not, in practice, it doesn't work that way because he's got reporters annoying him, like irritating reporters. He's got, he's got his staff. He's got to at least give a nod to diversity or else he gets shamed. And he doesn't have the fortitude that Musk has in that regard. And so they themselves are trying to assert themselves in sort of what they consider a man, right? This is the definition.
Is the issue just that people form cliques and act unreasonable? Oh, actually, I have no idea. I don't know. For all the Slack culture stuff they're talking about, I don't know. It could be similar to that one thing that I said before that I saw this at the casino, and then I knew this from Eve and Rust, that you always have, I used to always call this meme the second meeting, where you'll have a meeting between employees and management where you can express grievances or talk about what's going on. And then after the meeting ends, then the real meeting happens, the second meeting where a smaller group of employees gets together and they just shit talk management and they shit talk everybody else. And they don't ever actually bring any of these grievances up. They just are there to gossip, basically. I don't know if maybe that's what Slack culture is like, but
Musk has in that regard. And so they themselves are trying to assert themselves in sort of what they consider a man, right? This is the definition of what a man is. A lot of them were not considered manly when they were in high school or, sort of Revenge of the Nerds kind of thing. So they are trying to hold on to all these kind of manly cosplaying, I guess. With Mark, it's the stupid chain and the t-shirt, which good luck, it's fine. I think it looks ridiculous, but fine. He likes it. Or the MMA, like I can feel like a man. Like they hold on, or I'm going to hydrofoil, or I'm going to...
How did you deal with the problem second meeting? Well, you have other employees that are friends with you that like inform on you about second meeting people, and then you try to bring up second meeting grievances in primary meetings, and it's just eventually it blows up and comes to a head, and then some people break off. You've got to fire people. It's just I don't know how you deal with it, but or if there's a better way to deal with it.
I'm going to work out. I'm going to show off my muscles. That's what Bezos is doing. Like, here's my muscles. Here's my pretty fiance kind of thing. They're trying to sort of cosplay a version of a man that I think it seems pathetic to me, but I think it gives them great comfort.
Well, one of the Rosetta Stones to me of the intellectual shift happening among this class was, I forgot now exactly when this was, but when Musk and Zuckerberg were talking about having a fight in a cage.
Right.
And this is all, this has its own funny sub-themes where Zuckerberg is taking it all incredibly earnestly and Musk is clearly mocking him the whole time.
Totally.
And so there's like a whole dynamic where like they don't have the cage match, which Zuckerberg would win, but actually Musk wins because what he was doing was making fun of Mark Zuckerberg. But
they didn't like each other. Just to be clear, they didn't like each other.
But then there's a third here. So there's an Allen and Company conference, one of these big CEO tech conferences, and Andreessen is asked about it. And he ends up sending out his answer on his Substack. And he basically says, I think it's great if they fight because we've lost all the masculine virtues of the Greeks. And if it was good enough for the Greeks, it's good enough for us. And one of the things happening, it seems to me, in the right-wing intellectual subculture these guys are increasingly part of, but also among them, is a sense that the world has feminized and that the masculine virtues of aggression, of combat, of conflict, of daring, of risk, of just making decisions and to hell with it has been diminished, and that the thing that is needed is some kind of correction, that modernity is going off the rails because we're becoming womanly and soft. And I guess this class of VCs and tech founders is going to show us our way back.
Well, they don't like women to start with. Come on, they don't like them to start with. So this is shouldn't be a surprise that they don't like the ladies, like kind of thing.
Well, they intellectualized it is what I think becomes interesting here.
What's interesting about what you're saying, and it's absolutely true. Let's start. They don't have women in their midst. I wrote a piece once say the men and no women of Facebook, and Mark got hurt by it. And I was like, what? I'm just putting up pictures of your management. I don't know what to tell you. Like, you hired them. They're very fixated on what a man is and how to behave. And what's really interesting, especially Mark Andreessen, if he could jog like 10 feet, I'd be surprised, right? Like talking about the manly virtues. Give me a person.
What are you talking about?
Mark Andreessen. if he could jog like 10 feet, I'd be
Mark Andreessen? Is that wait, is that the guy? That wasn't the guy on the Lex show. There's a different guy?
Surprised, right? Like
hard to keep track. The egg-headed guy? Oh, it is the egg-headed guy. Okay.
About the manly virtue. It's really interesting, especially Mark Andreessen. if he could jog like 10 feet, I'd be surprised, right? Like talking about the manly virtues. Give me a break. When he said that, I'm like, I could beat him up in 5 seconds. Like, I don't even understand where this comes from. But they, now he's going to challenge me to a fight, whatever. So it's a concept of what a man is that is not what a man is, but they've decided it is. Now, of all these people, Elon didn't cosplay a lot like that. Like, he didn't, except now he's trying to wear the cowboy hats and that whole nonsense that he's doing. But he actually didn't as much as they did. And now they sort of take all their cues from his aggression, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, that was the thing I was going to sort of get at with Zuckerberg too. When I think back on that fight they were going to have, and Zuckerberg for a minute seemed to be positing himself as the Elon foil, right? He challenged him to a fight. He was having Threads. Elon had X, and now you see Zuckerberg copying him. The way he engages on Threads is the way Elon engages on Twitter.
Yeah, Zuckerberg is such a beta. He's such a beta. I'm not saying that.
But there is this deep way in which Musk seems to have reset the culture, or at least been the signal that allowed a lot of the people who weren't quite ready to come out and say how they've been feeling themselves to move. He led a lot of the flood towards Trump of tech leaders. And, now is like showing, you can actually turn this into political power in a way that I think nobody quite realized you could do directly. Peter Thiel, I think, for better or worse, gets a lot of credit for he supported Trump early. He made his bets, but Thiel didn't try to wield the power himself. Thiel makes bets and watches him pay off or not. Yeah. But Musk is going in and showing, it could just be you. You could not only have all this power as a technology CEO, you could be one of the most important celebrities in the world, and you could be functionally shadow president. Like, you didn't figure this out? I figured it out.
Yeah, Zuckerberg hid from the attention, right? Zuckerberg never liked he liked the acclaim, but he never liked the shit that went with it, right? And so...
This is something that, I commented on this the other day. This is like a weird thing that's happened to where it feels like billionaires or people generally liked to be kind of behind the scenes. And I don't know if it was over COVID or if it was social media or what, but it changed to where now everybody wants to be like, everybody wants the attention now. Like, they want to be on podcasts. They want to be like on social media. They want everybody to see them constantly and to know who they are and to be like front and center. Like Zuckerberg did his whole fashion redesign and is doing BJJ and is posting YouTube videos and is going on podcast. Like, yeah.
That's why he didn't push all the way through, right? And that was interesting. And Musk does have this guts to do that. Like, I'm going to do it no matter what. If I get attacked. And in fact, I eat my attackers for breakfast, right? I love them.
Have you ever talked about Thiel on stream? I wonder why not. Is the implication that I'm scared or what? I don't understand what the point of that comment is, but okay.
My attack, come and get, I'm going to do it no matter what. If I get attacked, in fact, I eat my attackers for breakfast, right? I love my attack. Come and
this
get
is
me.
Trump's personality too. I mean, the thing they seem to me to be is temperamentally actually quite similar. It takes a very unusual personality to be shameless at that level.
Yeah.
The amount of genuine hatred you need to absorb. You know, there's a decision they both made that, you know, if you want to really wield power, you have to be willing to be hated. And one of the things most of us are not willing to do is to be truly hated. And most CEOs are not willing to be truly hated. It seems like bad business if nothing else. That disinhibition is to me central to their alliance.
Well, they do care though. Underneath, Trump wants nothing more than have the New York Times love him. Like you can feel it, right? Like you know that the sense of victimhood.
People say this, I don't buy it anymore. Maybe you did once. I don't buy it anymore.
I do. I think they both care quite a bit of what people think. I think they care almost too much what people think. And so I think it fuels their rage in a lot of ways.
I think both of them are right. I think that he wanted to be loved by the New York Times, but if he's not going to be loved by the New York Times, he wants everybody to see that the New York Times is wrong for not loving him. So the New York Times doesn't have to love him as long as there's a bigger crowd of people that now hate the New York Times, that love him and condemn the New York Times for not loving him. I think they're both kind of right. It's just that's the evolution of where they're at right now. Yeah.
I think they will never not, there's a little piece of them that is never not going to care about what people think of them, and they become more and more emboldened by that. It fuels, it's the center of their rocket fuel, I think.
I mean, there might be certainly truth to it as rocket fuel for them. I just think that at a certain point, you lose a belief that these people are even friends you still want to have. And that's, I think, what real radicalization is.
Absolutely.
Radicalization, I think, often takes just the normal pluralistic give and take, we're all in this together, off the table. It becomes an all-out war. And I do think Trump, in a different way, but in some ways a more, I think, intellectualized way, Musk, now see this as all-out war, and you have to gain control. If you don't, I mean, he was on Rogan's show saying, you know, that there'd be no more elections if Trump didn't win this time. I mean, Musk has really gone into the civilizational battle, right? He clearly believes in some level of great replacement theory. He's now trying to get the far-right AFD elected.
God, that was so cringe when it was Brett Weinstein and Joe Rogan. They're like, could you imagine what they would have done if they would have won the election? And it's like, Biden has been president for 4 years and nothing happened. What do you mean by that? What a stupid what do you mean? What do you think would have happened that they couldn't literally have just already done? What? Hey, new guy here. What's your general broad view on religion, in government, and the development of that new faith office in the White House? Cringe. Government should exist to protect our right to practice whatever religion we want, but obviously recognizing any state religion or giving deference to some religions is super ultra cringe.
In Germany, trying to get labor out of power in the UK.
It's our own chance. He said that the other day.
And this to me gets it a way that I'm curious if you think he's changed. For a very long time, Elon Musk was that everything is backwards.
I'm so curious to know what this lady thinks, why there are no female billionaires. She's shit-talking men a bit too much. I feel like women like this, in my opinion, just on what I've seen, I feel like women like this are the ultimate masculinity test, because she is one of the most fucking no bullshit, straight talking people I've ever seen in my life. And I think that if listening to her makes you upset, I think that you're a beta and you're too feminine. I think that my guess is if you were to ask her, I don't know, maybe she has actually answered this, so I'll sound stupid. My guess, if you would ask her, why do you think there are no female billionaires? She'll say, I don't know, women are pussies and men are set up more for success probably. And women don't exist enough on the extremes to do what they need to do to be as ruthless and crazy as men are. It would be some shit like that. That'd be my guess. She would just be incredibly frank with you. I don't think she, I don't know if it's, to be fair, maybe this is the only thing you've seen of her and that's your impression, but I seriously doubt she'd be like, well, it's because DEI isn't big enough and feminism hasn't given enough jobs for women. I feel like, I don't think I've ever seen her say anything. I want to be cautious. No, I've seen enough of her. Because I watched her on that Pure show and I was like, wait a second, this woman seems super based.
From it a way that I'm curious if you think he's changed. For a very long time, Elon Musk was that everything is backwards from his belief that eventually the humanity needs to be an interplanetary species.
He does think that.
And, well, I'm sure he does think that, but he sure seems to be more concerned with the demographic balance of the United States and a handful of Northern European countries.
Well, look at all his children. He manifests it himself by having so many children and seemingly not spending time with them except for one, right? He wants to have children, not necessarily be a parent, which I think is an interesting thing to plumb at some point.
So what is the goal that now motivates him? Do you really believe it's still the interplanetary thing, or is it a view that these countries are losing their cultures, and if you lose those cultures, then everything is lost?
I do think it does manifest from the need to get off this planet. I do. I think that's everything. That is the one consistent thing since I met him, which is this idea that civilization is doomed and therefore we need to get off this planet. I think at their heart, they do believe the version of themselves is the greatest version of man, right?
It seems a bit reductionist of her to say Elon and Zuck is because of daddy issues. I can see why people would be put off because of that. I mean, like, yeah, but I mean, the goal is like we have to try to psychoanalyze. This is like the fault of these people, of the right. Like, it's impossible to tell what actually drives them because we've seen now that none of them have any values or principles that seem to align with any of the stuff they said initially. Like, the free speech thing was obviously a massive fucking lie. You know, you can see Elon going crazy for censorship for people he doesn't like. You can see Trump going crazy for filing lawsuits against people who say things about him he doesn't like. So the free speech thing was a total fucking lie. Anything having to do with like Zuckerberg completely 180ing on everything relating to like fact checking and responsible speech. So, okay, so I guess all of that was a total fucking lie. So when everybody is constantly 180ing on every single fucking thing they said, it's like, okay, well, fuck. Well, now we have to figure out what's actually driving these people. It's clearly we can't listen to what they say, or we can listen, but we can't take them at face value. We got to figure out what else is going on here. Like, so you're trying to figure out at the end of the day what's powering these people, you know?
Which would be a white guy supreme kind of thing. I think they actually believe that at their heart. And so you're going to see that manifested in these statements that he makes all the time, which are very clearly, like, I forget what he said, but essentially we need more South Africans here in this country or something like that. And he's always sort of pulling in that direction. I have never heard him express any kind of what I would consider. I've heard different CEOs express racism. His is a different kind. It's more around social engineering and the idea that the best people are being replaced. I think that's really where he lives, which is also racist, of course.
So to you, the synthesis of these positions is that Musk is still motivated by the desire to become interplanetary, but he just believes that we are corroding the civilizational virtues and genius, that you would need to do that with DEI and the woke mind virus.
Everything is in the way of our getting somewhere else because the lesser people are in charge, or the lesser people, you know, he does talk about this a lot. Like at one point he was tweeting about cesarean sections, right? Did you see that tweet? Where he said, if you have a cesarean, you have a better brain because your brain comes out better because you're not going through the vaginal canal. This whole thing he was talking about. And, you know, I've had a cesarean, so I sort of was like, sit down, sir. Like, you don't know what you're talking about. But he was, that was a really interesting thing. Everyone sort of passed people by, but I was like, oh, he thinks you have to like preserve the birth. Like he's sort of eugenics almost. Like, you know what I mean? Like it was such a weird thing for him to go down that avenue. But he has these theories about human brains and development. Obviously he's involved with...
Honey, what? What are you screaming about? You're unhinged. What's your issue? So fuck you then.
Neuralink. So he's always been interested in the idea of machine people merging together. That's certainly an area that hasn't been plumbed enough, is Neuralink stuff.
And so if you put all this together and bring it back to the government, it sounds to me like if I pull out what you're saying here, what you have is someone who, in order for humanity to achieve its long-term goals, you need people like Elon Musk in control of a federal government that is responsive to people like Elon Musk, purged of the forces that were not responsive, that slow down a person like Elon Musk, in a polity that isn't infected by these modern progressive ideas of equity, of consensus, of doing all these things that are just slow and burdensome and regulatory and soft and don't allow for the risk and the daring to allow you to blow up 90 rockets.
Wait, quick break. I'm curious. What does this look like?
Do you feel like it's a backlash, or do you feel like you're violating people's privacy?
This is Kara, I guess, interviewing Zuckerberg a long time ago, 14 years ago.
Do you feel like you're adequately portrayed as a... Because I want to wonder about the person who actually created this thing.
Yeah, I mean, you know, a lot of stuff happened along the way. I think, you know, there were real learning points and turning points along the way in terms of building things. You know, it really went from this position very early on where we were just in this college dorm room to, we moved out to California. It was a few friends and me. And, you know, it just kind of had this project feel for a while. And there was this real turning point when companies started trying to buy the company for a huge amount of money. And, you know, I had to kind of get my friends together and we had to decide what was it that we really cared about and what was it that we wanted to do. And, you know, we decided not to take those offers. And, you know, to me, a lot of that decision was that what we wanted to do and what we wanted to spend, you know, a big part of our lives doing was just continuing to push and kind of build products that help people share information, build products that help people stay connected. And that's really what we're spending our time doing. And, you know, I think there's just been a lot of space between that early stuff and where we are now. If I knew what I knew now then I hope I wouldn't have made those mistakes. But I can't go back and change the past. I can only do what we think is the right thing going forward.
So, before we move off this privacy thing, and I thought that was a fascinating answer.
It's okay. You want to take off the hoodie?
You know, I never take off the hoodie.
I know you don't. What's with that? There's a group of women in the audience that wish you would. And...
no.
Girls?
Whoa.
All right.
Sorry. Yeah, that's okay.
Can you explain what this instant personalization thing was that you did and why you did it and what's the value of it to your users?
Maybe I should take off the hoodie.
Take off the hoodie.
Go ahead.
You want
What
to?
the hell?
Are you hot? Go ahead. Here. Let me get someone. You all right?
Yeah.
This is a great moment in internet history.
What?
You all right?
What are we gonna do with the mic?
Put it on your.
All right.
Put it on the collar of your T-shirt. Do you want?
Do you need some help?
No, I'm good.
All right. Okay. Mark?
Sorry about the.
Sorry about being warm, Mark.
No, it's.
We're not even yelling at you.
Yeah.
Yet.
We're not going to yell at you.
No, of course not. That is a warm hoodie.
Yeah. No, it's a thick hoodie. It's a company hoodie. We print our mission on the inside.
What? Oh,
really?
my God, the inside of the hoodie, everybody. Take a look. What is it? Making the
world more open and connected.
Oh my God, it's like a secret vault. Look at that, making the world open and connected, stream, graph, platform, and this weird symbol in the middle that is probably for the Illuminati. Oh, 2010.
No, it's 2010.
Oh no.
If you don't start debating conservatives on the coup that's happening, I'm moving to Pisco stream. This shit is boring. Listen, you're always welcome to watch the stream. I watched Pisco debating Lactoid the other day on some of it, and it's just like conservatives are just like, it's full retardation. It's actually the most retarded, boring, stupid shit in the universe. I think the entire debate, I don't know if Pisco hosts his VODs or whatever, the entire debate was literally just Lactoid, like going over and over again. I think, oh wait, this is like a WIC debate.
So what Lactoid is?
Oh, it was this. It was like him saying over and over again, like, if you can't tell me the exact number of days that the government would have... Why? I don't even know what the fuck you're doing. Okay. Like, if you can't tell me the exact number of days the president can shut down some funding, then that means it's never illegal or unconstitutional. It's just like, these are soul crushing, the most retarded fucking conversations that I can like ever listen to. Like, oh my God, it's so stupid. Oh my God. I don't know what he's doing up there. Honey, what? Okay, have fun.
And so that sort of, is that your view of like the put it all together, that he's trying to functionally make the federal government something that can be effectively controlled by people like him?
If I move the books, do you think he'd lay down? If I go over there, he's going to try to jump down because that's what he always does. Hold on. Hi, baby. Look. There. He's not going to lay down now that I made a space for him. He's going to just leave.
To get to the goals he wants to get to?
Yeah, I think he thinks they're in the way. This goes back to Peter Thiel. Peter Thiel is, everyone's like, oh, they want to reform it. I go, no. They want to burn it down, like, and start again. Like, that is, if you spend time reading Peter Thiel, that is what he's saying, right? Democracy doesn't work. It doesn't work. We're going to start with something else. And so they don't want, and that is sort of the ethos of, move fast and break things, right? Which is a software term. They want to break. They don't want to build. They want to break. And they can't build until you break. And that's the disruption. Think of all the words they use. It's all about, like, destruction. Like, and it's not creative destruction. It's let's wipe the slate clean, and then we will build the civilization we want. And let us...
You may think it's tedious, but these ideas are constantly in the public's mind. That's why we need to retread 2016 energy. You need to debate normal Trump supporters again. Yeah, but the challenging thing is that while you're debating them on what exactly would be violative of the law, the underlying idea is they don't actually care if Trump is violating the law. Like, that's the challenge, is if you were to debate them ultimately into a position, maybe they'd even concede the argument. But at the end of the day, emotionally, like, well, if Trump is breaking the law, I don't care. He should break the law. The law is fucked. It's all the deep state anyway. Who cares, Been enjoying the productive non-doomer content. I can only take so much conservative slob in a day. Thanks, Blakely, I think. What?
Let us show you the way of how we can get back to glory, kind of thing. And like, it's just it's that theory, but they sort of burnish it with this techno-utopianism that is really techno-authoritarianism. If you break it down, that they know best, and that is, we just listen to them, the world will be a better place for everybody.
To try to be generous to it as a theory of governmental reform, which
I know you like to do that.
I try.
I think democracies work pretty fucking well, but go ahead.
So Musk has said regulations basically should be default gone, not default there, default gone. If it turns out that we missed the mark on a regulation, we can always add it back in. And so if you take the view that we have a long-time stable government, there's a lot of crust, a lot of bureaucracy. The theory here, which I guess is also a theory from Twitter, is like, yes, you rid it, you turn things off, you turn them back on, you cut hugely. And if there's a problem, then you go fix a problem later. But better to cut deeper and then be able to rebuild in a cleaner way than to cut not deep enough, to only get a quarter loaf. And politics does not go that far in reform. It's very, very hard to reform institutions. And there are real problems from that. I mean, San Francisco works quite poorly. Much of the federal government, leaves something to be desired. So is there a case to be made here for
Did you say San Francisco
much of go that far in reform? It's very, very hard to reform institutions, and there are real problems from that. I mean, San Francisco works quite poorly. Much of the federal government
works quite poorly. Does he just mean in terms of reforming some things? I mean, there are definitely issues, but
leave something to be desired. So, is there a case to be made here for Muskism that he is doing what normal political reformers won't do and taking risk in order to do it? But this is actually the only way to actually create a federal bureaucracy that is not quite so sclerotic.
No, I think it's not at all. I think I'm a reform person, right? Obviously, everything's not going to happen at once. There is an ease to tearing it all down, isn't there? And it has to be a willingness to sacrifice people, right? We're going to sacrifice this group of people, these young women, they don't care about that. And one of the things I say over and over again, they're like, I have a lot of people like, how can they do this? How can they do this? I'm like, they don't care. They don't care for you. They don't think about you. You're nothing. And I remember one time Musk was the earliest person to talk to me about AI. AI has been around forever, but he was really concerned about the impact of AI on humanity. That was another thing. He was the first person to raise those alarms, to me at least, when he started OpenAI with Sam and the rest of them. First, he was like, AI is going to kill us. It's going to like the Terminator idea, right? It's going to become self-aware in 20 whatever, and then it's going to turn around and bomb us and kill us and start again, right? And we got to stop that. That was his theory. Next time I saw him, I thought he came up with a much more sophisticated idea of it, which was they're not going to kill us. They're going to treat us like house cats. Right?
Yeah, Gulag, that honestly, that would be the best question. But I don't have access to bigger conservatives now to say that. But I think the best question if you're debating a conservative is, what is your red line? What could Trump do that would be over that would be over a line for you? I would be interested to hear that answer. I don't even know if they'd answer that question. I'm not sure.
Right? We're house cats, and they're fine with us here, and they're going to build everything around us, but we're not in danger. We're in danger in the way house cats are. As long as they like house cats, we're fine. Like, they don't think of us as anything more. Then the next time I saw him, he had evolved into this idea that AI was more like building highways, the way we build highways across the country, and humanity is a bunch of anthills. And we go across anthills without thinking when we're building roads. We don't know that the anthills are there. We just do it. I thought the progression was really interesting to me, that that's how he was looking at it. And to me, that's how I thought he was expressing how he operates. These things are anthills. I don't have to think about them because we never think about them. And so to me, that was a really interesting progression of the first one cares about what happens to humanity. The last one doesn't.
I like that progression of metaphors because very classically, what you put into the metaphor reveals what you can see and not see out of the metaphor. And I think the dominant comparison for what Musk is doing is Twitter, where he came in and used in some ways a very similar playbook to cut through it and take control of it. But during that period, Twitter broke down terribly. Its advertising collapsed. It's still a much jankier platform than it used to be. I mean, it has things it didn't have before, like Grok, but the search doesn't work. One thing that just strikes me when I look at what Trump is outsourcing to Musk right now is I wonder if they have really thought about the risk they're taking on. No. Because I've never seen an administration come in and so completely own everything bad that might happen that the federal government does or is supposed to regulate in the coming years. If you imagine something like the terrible plane crash that happened just recently, happening in a year, when pushed retirements have come through the FAA, and Musk had already pushed the administrator of the FAA to be on leave or resign, you would get a lot more blame for that. But bad things happen all the time. The federal government is supposed to stop financial crises and on and on and on. They're coming with this axe to the government, pushing indiscriminate resignations, reassigning people, pushing out very talented career staff. Anything that goes wrong, they are truly going to own.
Yes, but they won't. They will not.
Exactly. They won't own it because they'll just blame it on DEI. They'll blame it on somebody else, or they'll just they don't have to own anything. They never have responsibility for anything. I don't know why.
They will not. They will say it is not them. We're cleaning up from the previous, right?
Yeah.
They will not take control because Ezra, you think they care about consequences. One of the messages in my
I think they care about power.
They don't care about the consequences of damage. They do not care. They don't anticipate it.
Because they can always pass that responsibility onto someone else. Always.
You're right about Twitter. It's a lesser business. The only way he's getting advertisers is by threatening them. Like, they're just doing these lawsuits, and of course these advertisers are going to go back just to acquiesce to him, right?
I mean, now he has power, right?
Not a better
it's
business.
a way to pay him off.
Tesla's not a better business than what it was because they haven't innovated the cars. That stock may be going up, but the sales are going down because the cars aren't as good. They just aren't. So he doesn't care about the actual thing. These people don't care about the actual thing. They care about laying waste to it, and then we'll build something better. But I don't know what they're going to build better. If you press them, and a lot of these, same thing with the media that goes with it, it's never about solutions, is it? It's about how everything sucks and we have to get rid of it. They never tell you what their replacement is for any of it because they don't have any.
True. When you ask them, how would you make this better? What would you do differently? It's always these vague, we'll make it more efficient. We'll make it less corrupt. We'll make it better. How? What are you going to... Okay.
You know, they don't have a theory of building. They have a theory of destruction. You know, Trump just with the water thing. He just, like, we got to get the water flow. What a disaster that was, what he just did, like in California. He's wasting water.
Opening reservoirs for no reason to fight fires that are gone.
And then the whole group of people going, sir, well done. I'm like, are you fucking, like, who is not standing there among the media going, are you fucking kidding me with this? Like,
yeah, this is, see, like, that's, yes, like, we need more people in the mainstream media saying shit like this. Like, what the fuck? What are you doing, bro? You're fucking retarded. Canada and Mexico didn't give you shit. All you did was make us look like fucking losers. Like, that's it. But it's like, today we're going to talk to this part of the Trump administration about their controversial decision to allow more water out of the reservoirs. Like some people would say, blah, blah. And it's like, okay.
Going, well, sir, people say, I'd be like, that's why they don't let me in the White House. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? That was a disaster. Like what you just did, you idiot.
I think back to Twitter on the control question, because Musk buys Twitter. He breaks a lot of Twitter. He breaks the business of Twitter. Clearly, he's overpaying at $44 billion. And so I would have told you, a year ago, 18 months ago, that didn't work out. But what he did actually do is he made Twitter a channel for him personally.
That's right.
And he turned all of its attention and influence into something he could control. And I don't know if the power he's getting out of that or will get out of that is worth $44 billion. I don't think it's exactly the way to measure it, but I actually think it's worth more than that. I don't think it would be possible for Musk to play this role in both domestic and now international politics if he didn't do that. We don't know how to value attention.
Oh, it's the best investment he made.
Exactly.
Except for investing in Trump, that $280 million. Let me tell you, the only person when he bought.
Do you believe that the political streaming community has evolved into a form of reality television where audiences are drawn more to the interpersonal drama than to genuine discussion? It sounds like you're just talking about politics in general.
We were all sort of like, what in the world? Why is he paying so much? What an idiot, right? Everybody was saying that. That was sort of the...
Well, he was too. He tried to get out of it on the view that it was overvalued.
He was stupid, right? Because he wasn't anticipating what he could use it for, right? He didn't realize he had a really big gun there, right? He thought it was a knife or whatever. The only person who called me was Mark Cuban. And he says, Carrie, he's not buying it. Like, maybe he doesn't know he's doing this. But when he goes in a room internationally as the head of Tesla or Starlink, I mean, he gets a meeting just like the head of GM or Lockheed gets, right? And world leaders, et cetera. When he goes in as the owner of Twitter, he has enormous power globally from an influence point of view. He goes, this is not a U.S. play. This is a global play. And I was like, I think Mark Cuban was 100% right. He bought it and it gave him, he's the Twitter guy and also Tesla and also, but he gets it. No one else has that, right? And maybe back in the day, Rupert Murdoch, right? I guess. And that's what he's done. But like bigger, better, stronger, more influential. Rupert Murdoch would never think of sitting with Trump cutting this stuff.
Well, Murdoch didn't want to be the main character of his own platform.
Right, but he is kind of Rupert Murdoch now, right?
I totally agree with that.
Rupert Murdoch who likes to do shit.
I've said the same thing. I think it's the absolutely correct comparison. But that, I think, then brings us to the government, which is...
Murdoch, though, at least from the very little I've seen and I'm aware of, Murdoch understood the rule book and wanted to play within the rules, but he still wanted a lot of influence media-wise. But he also had like a strong belief in like an ideology and everything. I don't know if the same would be said for Elon. Elon seems to be willing to break way more rules, doesn't understand the history of the U.S. or the government or any media structure or anything at all. Yeah, I don't know. I view him as being more insidious even than Murdoch, but maybe not. Maybe I'm not giving Murdoch enough credit. I mean, Murdoch is what gave us things like Fox News and the whole Dominion bullshit and all that. So,
He may not know what he wants to build after it, but what I think that at least the Twitter experience probably taught him is if you break it, you can control it. You can make it a vehicle for you, right? And if it's filled with the old people who were in it and they're unafraid and they have power and they're power centers, then you're posed. I don't know if even he knows what he wants to do with the government, but the degree to which he wants everybody to see that it is him doing it, I thought it was so telling that in the email they sent out to federal employees, trying to tell them you could get money and do nothing until September if you just retire, that he gave it the same subject line as the email he sent out to Twitter employees during that buyout. He wanted everybody to know it was him.
Exactly.
Right? He wants to be the main character of the whole thing, as you said at the beginning.
You said that right. I thank God you said that because like all the media's like, look at this interesting thing. I'm like, he wants you to know.
It's a signature.
It's me, Fredo. I know it's you, Fredo. Like he totally wanted people. Everything he does, he wants you to know because again, he's a desperate attention sponge and he just needs constant. Why would you stay up at night talking to people, named Cat Turd? Why? I'm not a psychologist, but boy, does he have a big old hole right in the center of himself. And so what I think is very telling about both of these people is they do not have solutions. They only tell us what the problem is, and they don't have a vision. Even Ronald Reagan had a vision. Like they all have. What is your vision? What do you want to make? Except get out of my way and let me do what I want to do. That's really the vision that I can tell. I haven't heard what they want to make at all.
He does seem a bit. There's this idea of the sin eater. In fantasy novels. I forget exactly where it comes from, but it's the character that consumes sin and then can be purged, right? You can purge that figure and then the sins are gone. It's a sort of sacrificial character.
It's Jesus, I think.
And in a way, Musk, I wonder a bit about that in terms of the pain of the administrative war that Trump and the people around him wanted to do. I mean, when I think about when this starts to go bad, assuming this starts to go bad, Musk taking so much credit for it all makes him so usefully sacrificial.
Totally.
When the people around Musk were more careful and quiet, the Susie Wileses, the Russ Votes, the rest of them who, are not
have you noticed they're all leaking? We don't have control of him?
Yeah, there's a lot of leaking already that we can't control Musk. Such that the moment he becomes more liability than asset, you can get rid of him. He's like, well, he went too far, right? Elon Musk got out of control. That wasn't us. I don't know that it happens. And, he has leverage he can bring to a fight like that. But doesn't seem impossible that it happens. And you can see people setting up that escape route as we speak.
Utterly. Trump's life is full of those people, and now he's got the greatest one ever. Michael Cohen was that, like the fixer, right? So there's always a fixer in Trump's life who does these things, who's willing to go to the mat and for the boss, right? Which he likes to be called, apparently. So Musk is that writ large. It's just that he's much more protected because he's so wealthy, he has so much means, that he almost is more powerful than, he's not a minion, he's like a super minion or something.
How real do you think the affection between the two of them is?
Well, Donald Trump is like, he has, what, 3 emotions, ABC? Like, I don't think he's very complex in that regard. I did think they were going to fight, and I know he's irritating to Trump. You hear that from a lot of people, and I think it's absolutely true. He probably is irritating. At the same time, Trump loves money, right? So really, that's at the heart of him. I think he's useful. I think Donald Trump finds him useful, and he is useful to Donald Trump. He's a useful junkyard dog, and so I think and he has a lot of money. So if he has a cudgel against these senators, he's going to give me money to take you out. Like, I've got a bank that never ends, essentially. He also knows he needs him to hold on to power, because what does it look like when they fight? What does that look like? You don't want Elon Musk outside the tent. That's a really bad place for Elon Musk to be, and angry, because he's shown he has an ability to fight back at people. So ultimately, it could go on for a while, and he could do more and more outlandish things and behave in more and more outlandish ways. Trump has an endless capacity for, oh, did he say a racist thing? I don't care. So I think it could go on for a very, very long time.
I've been struck, though, to see Trump already talking about, trying to make clear that Elon is under his control.
I told him
he said, quote, Elon can't do and won't do anything without our approval, and we'll give him the approval where appropriate. Where not appropriate, we won't.
Right.
And then there's this endless leaking from inside the administration that nobody's actually in control of him.
Yeah.
Trump is not paying attention to what he's doing.
Right.
And
no, he's not. He's totally not.
I think both things are actually true, that Trump could say no to him, but actually Trump doesn't.
It's not even that Trump doesn't, pay attention to what he's doing, or that Trump, isn't controlling him. I don't even think Trump would know how to. I don't think Trump knows about any of this. If you would ask Trump about the Department of Treasury or any of these departments and what they do or where the funding comes, I don't think Trump would know the answer. He literally has no clue. He's being led by everybody around him. So I don't even know what Trump would try to do to control him.
He's not paying attention to what he's doing.
Right. It would be somebody else controlling Elon through Trump. Trump is just like the vessel that everybody tries to operate through.
No, he's not. He's totally not.
I think both things are actually true, that Trump could say no to him, but actually Trump doesn't care. And so the danger for both of them, in a strange way, is that Musk, who is hyper-empowered and has a very, very almost endless appetite for risk, takes a risk that blows up for all of them.
What could that be? What is he, detonate a nuclear bomb?
You break the government and things are going to break. I mean, you have to have a very, I'm not saying you do, but you have to have a very dim view of government to believe that if you get rid of this many talented people in it, that when bad things begin to happen in the world, and they happen constantly. There was a pandemic in Trump's in his first term, but Trump in his first term had this real interesting capacity to always seem like he was outside of the state that he, in theory, ran.
That's right.
He spoke as if, he was up in the balcony jeering at the opera he was watching. And that always gave him this strange, ability to separate himself from how government that he didn't like worked. That was the whole political utility of the deep state. But they've torched that. I know they might still try to claim it, but when you do this kind of bulldozer tactic, and it's this public, and you are absorbing all this risk and pushing these people out, then when things break and people go back and they look and say, well, a bunch of the people here, they actually took the buyout. They took your fork in the road, Elon. I could be wrong. It could all work out great for them, but they're taking a lot of risk.
You see, you're operating on the idea they care about the pain. They don't care. They won't take responsibility for it. Have you heard Mark Zuckerberg take responsibility for any of the problems?
I think Trump cares about pain, though. Look at how quickly he backed off on his tariffs of Canada and Mexico when the markets began to move, right? You can lose midterm elections really badly, and then all of a sudden the investigations are coming for you.
Right, which is probably what will happen, right? That's the likeliest scenario here. One of the things that he's got to keep Musk around for that is the money on these things, to manipulate things, to really flood the zone with all kinds of money and efforts to win that midterms. But again, they don't care. He has done the damage. As long as he destroys it and you can't come back, is what they're doing. In Musk's mind, my guess is that he thinks this is the only way to do it, is to get rid of everything. They're hoping you focus so much on the destruction that you're not going to notice you're living in a destroyed place. And I know you think there's bigger implications, but you'll see they'll be all over they'll be so all over the place, it'll be hard to figure out what actually has been destroyed, or to feel a sense of anger. What's going to happen is people are going to feel a sense of just nihilism, right? I think that's what's going to happen.
I do think that's often the emotion that they are attempting to provoke. I want to ask you before we end a question about the broader Silicon Valley tech culture here. You've had this big, almost herd-like movement towards this, I forgot what you called it, a techno-authoritarian.
Authoritarianism. Yeah.
And it's been so fast and so intense among the leaders, the sort of cultural leaders of Silicon Valley, the people with the biggest social media accounts, and they're all at the Trump inauguration. Do you see a counterforce when you think of the cultural currents there? Is it all just moving this direction? Are the employees moving this direction? Are the people coming up? What is the contrarian bet in terms of this intellectual culture, which was very different 10 years ago than where it is now, when everybody was pro-Obama.
They weren't pro-Biden, I can tell you that.
They were not pro-Biden, and they hated Donald Trump in 2016, with the exception of Thiel. So it moves very fast. And so whenever it moves as fast and as far as it has now, it sort of makes me wonder where it's going to be in 4 years. I'm curious if you have a sense of who you're watching as signals of that.
There's a few people. Reid Hoffman was just on the podcast this week. I sense fear in him, right? He funded the E. Jean Carroll thing. He's a very lovely person, and he's very like even-handed all the time, but almost to a fault. You know, I don't think he's going to be as aggressive, and he certainly was, right? But he's got to be thinking, what do I do? I'm very exposed, right? You have a Mark Cuban who I think presents a different alternate. He claims to me he doesn't want to run for president. I think he has a real opening, right? Of like, oh, come on, this is not the way we are. I don't think everyone's moved there. I think most of there's these loudmouths like Musk and David Sachs and that gang, and even Peter's not that loudmouth these days, which is interesting. I find interesting. But there you have the loudmouths, but I don't think everyone is on this ticket. Like if you noticed, you didn't see Tim Cook in the front row. With the greatest feat of engineering in history was somehow he didn't have to be in that picture, right? I have never thought Silicon Valley was liberal. I thought they were utilitarian, I guess. I thought they sort of were tolerant socially, but didn't really care, didn't think.
Yeah, one of the big problems is because conservatives have fought so much on social grounds, I think we tricked ourselves for a long time into thinking that liberal just meant pro-gay and not hating women or black people, like basically. And so that's why I think people look at people like Joe Rogan. It's like, Joe Rogan used to be a huge liberal. Like what happened? It's like, well, he never was really like a huge liberal. He just had like social tolerance. Like that was really it. He doesn't have like a strong attachment to principles behind governing or anything like that. He just like didn't hate gay people. And that's probably true of a lot of the people in Silicon Valley as well, probably, yeah.
Think about it much. I think these people just want to do their business. I don't think they support Trump. I think it's like a VIG, right? Whether you're Bob Iger or whether you're anybody, you got to pay the VIG or you don't have a choice right now. I don't think there's a deep well of support for Trump. I think it's just there's a bunch of loudmouths that have that and everyone else just shakes their head. So when that's the case, there tends to be a countervailing force of these guys are shakedown artists, right? When, say, as you say, disaster will come and this will be a big fucking mess, they will line up in that direction because it's good for them and for their shareholders. So whatever it takes for shareholders to do.
Actually, no, I wouldn't even say weed. I don't think most of these guys, like Joe Rogan and all these people, I don't think any of these guys actually care about weed legalization. I think that there is an incredibly nuanced way to look at this, and I think that I think that they're very much on the other side. None of these people, the Tech Valley people, Joe Rogan, none of these guys care about weed legalization. They just care that they have the ability to buy and smoke weed. That's what they care about. And even though those things seem similar, I think they're entirely different. Because the concept of fighting to legalize or nationwide decriminalize something is a lot different than just, bro, I just want to be able to smoke weed, fuck off. Like, I guess the thing that I would look to for that now is how many of these people are actively talking about, like, Trump needs to legalize weed? I don't think they care. But if Trump were to make it so that every state all of a sudden couldn't sell weed, or like weed was significantly harder to get in the US, then I think they would care a lot. I don't think they give that much a fuck about like legalization or decrim or whatever. They might talk about it every now and then, but it's not like a huge priority. That's why none of them give a fuck about it now. Actually, I didn't watch the whole thing. I'm curious. Ooh, this would be a huge boon for my argument. It wouldn't sink it if it wasn't true, but it would be crazy if this was. Did Joe Rogan, when Trump was on, he must have I only made it 35 minutes in. This was so boring. Did he ask him about weed legalization? He must have, right? No shot. No shot. Really? 3-hour podcast and he didn't ask it all? Wait, cannabis maybe? Jeez. Yeah. No, yeah. I don't think any of these guys give a fuck about legalization of weed. They just want to be able to smoke it. I would look for marijuana. Pot. Pot of gold.
Do better. They will, if Trump tanks the stock market, if Trump tanks this, they'll be on the opposite side instantly because they have no real values. They just don't. You know, Elon has more values than most of them in a weird way, even though they're warped and twisted. So I think they'll just go whatever way the financial markets go. That's my feeling.
I think it's a good place to end. Always a final question. What are 3 books you recommend to the audience?
Oh, God, interesting. I can't, one of them, I can't say, well, there's a memoir coming out from a very well-known media person that once it publishes, you should read. I'm reading it right now. I can't say who it is because he gave it to me on the slide. I think it's wonderful.
Wow.
I love the book North Woods by Daniel Mason, which came out last year, which is about a house, the history of a house and the people who lived in it. And it's haunting me. I think it's the most beautiful book. And I love Daniel Mason. I'm reading The Piano Tuner right now. I'm reading all his stuff. But this book it's about one of the things that comforts me in this very difficult time. I have 4 kids. I'm a gay person. It's nerve-wracking right now. I thought this was all over and here we are again. But it gives me comfort that we're all being dead someday. Like, I know it sounds crazy, but life goes on over the period. And so I really like that book. And then I recently interviewed him, and I think he's terrific. Tim Snyder. I think he's a really important person talking about where tyranny goes and stuff like that. I read a lot more nonfiction. I should read more fiction. And I'm sorry, I'm going to give one more. Geraldine Brooks, who's a wonderful writer. She won...
There's a lot of people who unironically think legalizing was bad since stores now sell weed and it's too strong and that it took away from the little guy. I have never heard a serious person say this in my entire life. Maybe there are some and I just don't know them, but...
I think that is the Pulitzer or whatever. Her book, she's mostly done fiction. She's written a book about the death of her husband that is incredible. Tony Horowitz, who is a friend of mine. Geraldine's a friend of mine. He wrote Confederates in the Attic, and it's a beautiful rumination on mortality and history. Just a wonderful book.
Kara Swisher, thank you very much.
Okay.
Okay, last meme.